This is BIA, Becoming in Action, a space to explore the lifelong journey of growth as leaders, as professionals, and as human beings. Through honest conversations and lived experience, we evolve with courage and intention. Here's your host, Sandy Abear.
Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. As many of you know, Gerard and I took a trip to California a few weeks ago. When we were staying in downtown Napa, I decided to go walking alone early one morning. No noise, no crowds, just quiet streets and that soft kind of light that makes everything feel possible. I left our hotel and turned onto First Street and just kept going. And I remember thinking, I feel different, not dramatically different, not loud, just here, present in my own life. I walked for about 40 minutes, no destination, just moving. There's something about walking in a new place that strips everything down. No routines to hide in, no roles to perform. It's just you and your thoughts. And for once, my thoughts felt calm, curious, open. I was stopping occasionally to take photographs. I even stopped to smell someone's roses. And then, suddenly, the road just ended. Like, literally ended. There was a sign, dead end. And I stopped. That sign stayed with me. I took a picture of that too. Because if I'm honest, I have felt that way so many times in my life. Like I hit a point where there was nowhere else to go. Where something closed off. A relationship, a version of myself, a plan that I thought would work. Dead end. And in those moments, it's so easy to internalize that, to think I'm the one who is stuck. I am the problem. I am the thing that has nowhere left to go. And this happened to me on such a scale when I got divorced. I really did feel like I was the dead end. I grieved the life I thought I was going to have. I never wanted my kids to have divorced parents. I grew up that way. I didn't want that for them. That was never part of the vision. And I also will never forget the moment I realized the marriage was never going to work. Not because there was one dramatic event, but because I realized I was becoming a person I did not want to be. That realization broke something open in me. But even then, it still took me 3 years of therapy to get the courage to leave. 3 years. I was still so unsure of myself that when I finally did it, I ended up asking for a legal separation first because I could not fully tolerate the finality of divorce yet. That is how stuck I felt. I worried that I was the problem, that I was never going to be happy. Who would ever want me? And even once I moved on, even once I remarried, I still carried so much grief, so much disappointment, pain, and guilt. Healing has not been linear for me. There were many, many nights when Gerard would be traveling and the boys would be with their dad, and I would sit alone and play solitaire for hours on the computer. My boys can remember me playing solitaire a lot in their childhood. That was my numbing drug of choice. Just trying to not feel everything I was carrying. And slowly, little bit by little bit, I started changing. Not overnight, not dramatically, just tiny shifts over time. And it's interesting because when I was married to my first husband, I was an avid scrapbooker. I jokingly call it aggressive scrapbooking. I loved it. And after I remarried, I ended up completely stopping after a few years. Gerard loved my scrapbooks. He's still kind of disappointed that I've stopped making them. A few days ago, I was telling a couple of friends that I think I stopped because I no longer needed to create the appearance of the life I wanted. When I was scrapbooking all the time, it was almost like playing paper dolls, like I was trying to hold together the story of this beautiful life I was desperate to believe in. And once I was actually living it, I no longer needed to scrapbook. My friend Lena looked at me and said, "Oh, your scrapbooking was your way of manifesting the life you wanted. It was vision boarding." And honestly, that hit me. I had never thought of it that way, but she was absolutely right. Not magically, not effortlessly. I manifested it through years of hard conversations, therapy, growth, discomfort, repair, honesty, and choosing differently. Gerard and I have worked incredibly hard for the life we have. And somewhere in all of that, I have learned something really important. Healing does happen, but it happens a little bit at a time. So slowly sometimes you barely notice it. Until one day you realize you do not stay stuck the way you used to. And I think that is a big part of why uncertainty does not terrify me anymore. I'll be honest, it still scares me some, but it doesn't terrify me because I've already learned I can survive the hard seasons. I learned I can grieve something deeply and still build a beautiful life afterward. I learned I can choose again. And when you believe you can choose again, you stop seeing yourself as trapped. You stop seeing yourself as the dead end. And standing there in Napa, in front of that sign, it was such a great reminder that I am never the dead end. The road is. The road can end. The path can stop. The direction you chose can no longer serve you. But you're not finished. You still have feet. You still have movement. You still have choice. You can turn around. You can take a side street. You can carve out something entirely new. And there's actually a lot of research behind this. What I felt in that moment has a name. It's called perceived agency. That belief, I can choose again. And it turns out perceived agency is one of the strongest predictors of well-being, even more than having a clear plan. People who believe they can choose again tend to be more resilient, more persistent, and more satisfied over the long term. Not because life is easier for them, but because they do not feel trapped inside of it. And that realization changes everything. 6 months ago, I faced another dead-end sign, losing my job. But this time, I knew it was the road that was ending, not that I was a dead end. And I didn't stay stuck. I didn't internalize that sign. And in the process of getting serious about myself and about what I really want to do has changed me. Not in a performative way, not in a look at the new version of me kind of way, but in a quieter, more honest way. I am finally showing up in my own life. I'm more present in conversations. I'm more aware of what I feel. I'm more willing to say and do what is true for me. And here's the part that makes me sad and I honestly have regrets about. For a long time, I was a supporting character in my own life. I was responsive instead of intentional, accommodating instead of choosing, watching instead of leading. And this is really hard to say. I had given away so much agency that I forgot I was allowed to want things too. And honestly, part of what makes me emotional about that now is realizing that it was not just affecting me. It was what I role modeled for my children. I was unintentionally teaching them supporting character energy, teaching them to adapt, to accommodate, to read the room before deciding what they wanted. I think about this a lot, especially with Grant right now. He is in this elite graduate program surrounded by incredibly high-performing people. And one thing I notice is that so many of them were raised with what I would call main character energy. Not arrogance, not selfishness, just an assumption that their ideas matter, that they belong in the room, that they are allowed to take up space, pursue ambition, ask questions, lead. And I realize now how much of life changes when you grow up believing you are allowed to fully participate in your own story. This realization has been hard for me, but it's also motivating because even though I cannot change what I modeled in the past, I can model something different now. I can show my boys what it looks like to evolve, to choose differently, to tell the truth, to build a life intentionally instead of accidentally. And honestly, that may be the most important thing I ever teach them. I was on the phone with my mom the other morning, and she asked me jokingly if I knew what I wanted to be yet when I grow up. And without thinking about it, I said something that surprised even me. I said, I think I only need to decide who and what I want to be this week. Next week, I get to evolve again because right now I do not have a clear destination. And for the first time, not panicking about that. My coaching business is not taking off as fast as I thought it would. I really believed I would have more clients by now. I love the work. I love the people I get to work with, but it feels like a slow burn, sometimes too slow. And my mind goes there. What if this is not the right thing? What if this does not work? What will it feel like to quit? What will it feel like to go get a real job? That is the part we do not always say out loud, because when you're in a slow build, it can feel like nothing is happening. But what I'm starting to understand is this. A lot of things that end up working do not look like they are working in the beginning. It looks like a slow, flat line. Effort, 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 with very little visible result. Until one day, there is a shift, a lift, a moment when things start to compound, the hockey stick part of the trajectory. And the truth is, you never know exactly when that moment is coming, which means the real work is not just building the thing. It's becoming someone who can stay in it long enough to get there. So instead of asking, is this working fast enough? I'm asking something different. Am I building something that can grow? Am I becoming someone who can sustain it? Because I am more confident in my not knowing than I have ever been. Not because it feels good all the time, because believe me, it really doesn't feel good all the time, but because I trust myself inside of it. I trust that I can keep walking, that I can turn around, that I can choose again. Being a supporting character can look responsible. It can look kind. It can even look successful from the outside. But this is why I don't want that for myself, my children, or anyone. Because internally, it feels like distance, like you're slightly outside of your own experience, like life is happening around you instead of through you. That is what's shifted. I am no longer waiting to be placed into my life. I'm stepping into it, not to control everything, but to participate fully in it. When I saw that dead end sign in Napa, it did not feel limiting. It felt clarifying. This road ends. Okay, good to know. Now, what do I want to do? That is agency. If you feel like you are at a dead end right now, in your career, in your relationship, in your identity, separate yourself from the road. The situation may be done. The version of you that got you there may be done, but you are not done. You do not have to have the next 5 years figured out. You might just need to decide who you're going to be this week. And this week, maybe you are someone who shows up, someone who keeps going even when it feels slow, someone who stays in the build long enough to see what is possible. Because you do not know when things will turn, but you do know you can always keep moving. That morning in Napa, I did turn around. I walked back a different way, not rushed, not frustrated, just aware. I am moving. I am choosing. I am here. If you are feeling stuck and don't know how to move forward, I'd love to connect with you and talk about how coaching could help you. And that's what I'm learning right alongside you. Thanks for listening. See you next time.